Are you the one who is to come? Or do we look for another? This is John's question from behind prison walls. Behind that question are a lot of others. I did a lot of work to prepare the way of the Lord. Are you taking that mantle seriously? Was it all worth it? Are you going to get me out? Am I going to die in here? Did any of it matter? These are the questions of someone confronting the end of their life and their life's work with an end they didn't choose. There's fear in there. But as Reverend Dr. Bo-Young Lee reminds us, quote, "This is not doubt born of cynicism. It is the trembling that comes when conviction meets suffering, when the cost of faithfulness has been high and the fruit appears small. It is what hope sounds like when it's running thin." End quote. The image that you find today on the front of your bulletins, and Ryan, if it's on the slides, would you? Yes, there we go. It's one rendering of John in prison. I will admit that I did a double take when I first read that it was an imagining of him in prison. The glow of that lantern light is kind of cheery to me, the hope flickering like dancers on the wall, his halo, that smile. Artist Lauren Pittman describes what she imagined when creating this image. But this is John after receiving a response from Jesus. In that day, there was no social media to follow each other and watch videos of each other's ministry and progress. Imagine a time when messages only came as rumors, and days or weeks later, information was not instant or constant. There was lots of time for questions and fears to roll around. And when John receives Jesus' reply, he has to kind of let it sink in. He knows, and Jesus would know that he knows, the Isaiah scroll well enough to know that Jesus omitted an important part of the passage in his response. When Jesus says what people are hearing and seeing, he does not say, "Release to the captives." John's not getting out, and now he knows it. But he also knows something deeper, and in this image, I think it's starting to settle in. Jesus comes not just as a political reactionary to confront the authorities and bust people out. He comes to make them whole. How stunning to realize the impending end of one's life and ministry, but then to receive confirmation that it mattered, that it had been part of something bigger, even if you don't fully understand your role in it at the time, to get a glimpse of what God's been up to and that it's so much bigger and better than you imagined. That is what I see settling across John's face. John asked Jesus, "Are you the one who is to come, or do we have to wait for another?" Another way for us to ask that question is, what is the nature of the one we await, the one we prepare for in this season? What is the nature of God's incarnate presence in the world? And when Jesus answered John, he encouraged the disciples to rely on their own senses. Go back and report to John what you hear and see. Those who are blind recover their sight. Those who cannot walk are able to walk. Those with leprosy are cured. Those who are deaf hear. The dead are raised, and the Anawim, the have-nots, have the good news preached to them. It is a roll call of healing and wholeness. People restored to themselves, to their senses, to their dignity, to community. those for whom the conditions of life left them hanging on by a thread and begging at the frayed edges of society, they are tended and cared for and restored to the fabric of community. This is Jesus' ministry, people of God. The vision of God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. This is why God comes to us to show us the path toward wholeness and love that we may follow. This also makes clear what is not the nature of God's incarnate presence in the world. The ongoing and unholy transfer of wealth from the Anawim, the have-nots, to billionaires. A one-to-one transfer, $1 billion cut from Medicaid, $1 billion tax cut to the top 1%. This is not the nature of God's incarnate presence in the world. The unholy cuts to food programs that leave refugees and children hungry. This is not the nature of God's incarnate presence in the world. The unholy work of ICE. There was a recent arrest in Northfield, Minnesota, the town of my alma mater, back in my St. Olaf's days. A sleepy town of 20,000, known as the place of cows, colleges, and contentment. Men in unmarked vehicles with no identification and masks over their faces, blocked in a car driven by a 15-year-old. They shattered the passenger side window and dragged the man, the boy's father, out through the broken window. A 10-year resident, a good father, a family man, no arrest history, on his way to one of 2 jobs in front of his son. People of God, we know that this is not the nature of God's incarnate presence in the world. We also know that unjust imprisonment is not new. In 1577, St. John of the Cross was kidnapped and imprisoned, and as a result of his attempt to reform the Carmelite order. Maybe we can learn more about that in Mark's History of Christianity. He was imprisoned in a cell too small to stretch out or to stand, no place to relieve himself, removed only to be beaten and tortured by other priests. He had a remarkable vision during that time. This John heard a duet, and the singers were himself and God. And from one of the remarkable poems that came from that time of imprisonment, he wrote, quote, "I am dying of love, darling, what should I do?" And the beloved responded, "Then die, my sweetheart, just die. Die to all that is not us. What could be more beautiful?" End quote. People of God, we don't have to be dead to die to all that is not God. There is so much that is unholy happening in our nation and the world that needs dying to. We are not living in normal times, and we know it. We name what we fear not to get sucked into its spin, but to face it and to discern how God is calling us to respond. To be partners in resistance, to die to all that is not God, to catch a vision of what God is up to, and to be part of the unfolding work of healing. How do we deal with the fact that we probably won't see God's work completed in our lifetime? Jesus reminds John and us to look for quiet signs of transformation. Where are they? If there are signs of the terror of Herod and empire, there are also signs of the resistance, of healing and new life. For me, recently, it has been gathering with hundreds of pastors in the upper Midwest via Zoom, beginning plans and visions for collective action across the U.S., saying that this is not normal and this is not okay, that human dignity is not just for those who can afford it, or for those who speak English, or for those with white skin. If we believe we are all created in the image of God, faith calls us to act like it. And Jesus calls us to deep compassion, to feed the hungry, care for the sick, and welcome the stranger. In his response to John, he reminded John and us, "Blessed is the one who finds no stumbling block in me." He also reminds us that God carries the work forward, even when we're struggling, to see it, to trust it with our own limitations. We can't always see the fruits of our labor, yet God is at work anyway. Reverend Dr. Boyoung Lee puts it this way: hope that trembles is still hope. People of God, may we find hope and peace in trusting that the one who is to come is waiting to be born in us. Thanks be to God. Amen.